Hello again, Bob Barron. I've been sharing some ideas I had about writing, showed you my book, one I wrote most recently, and I just wanted to give you a few more ideas before I say goodbye on this particular project. I've been a teacher most of my life. I'm sure I told you that before if you looked at some of my videos, but I want to tell you something about learning and lifelong learning and becoming smarter and what books are about. If you're in our house at all, you'd see, I think you saw some of the books I had in one of these other videos. Well, here I'm in a different room, and behind me, yeah, we have really thousands of books in this house. Some mine and my brother's, my dad's and mom's and all of us, really, even sisters, from a long time ago, and some are very recent. But I believe in books. I like books a lot. I've been a reading teacher for a long time, and I still like to learn. I take classes to learn things. But let me just tell you a couple of things that might get you interested in this thing. When we're talking about getting smarter, we're not really talking about IQ, although that might come into it at some point. It's something we don't talk much about anymore in education. We used to talk a lot about it when I first started back in 1965, because it was pretty much in the system that we would test children for IQ, and then we could know how to go from there. IQ is important. I still think it's important because you need certain kinds of facilities, within your mind we're talking about in order to do things, but I won't talk about that much, except I will tell you this. When I've been teaching, especially lately, I've taught some college classes a few years ago, I would tell my students that you will get smarter in this class. And I really believe it. Now, what are we talking about? We're talking about the fact that most people, when they're children, even before they ever go to school, they've been listening to stuff for a long time, hearing adults, maybe hearing TV programs or even having books read to them. And what they've been doing, of course, is listening and learning a lot of words. Listening to those words over time as they're repeated in different contexts and in different uses, well, all that stuff gets stored in a person's brain right up here, 100 billion cells. And so when a child does go to school, what are we doing? We're teaching reading. We're teaching them to connect what they already know with what they're looking at on a page in a book. That's really what reading is about. You're learning about how the sounds you've heard look when they're on a piece of paper, on a page in a book. And I can show you one thing that you might find fascinating. This is an encyclopedia from about, more than 100 years ago. Well, we had it in our house for years and years and years, so I think I can show you this. I think probably the copyright's long gone, but this is the first picture. I hope you can see that. The first picture my brother ever showed me when I was a child. Now, maybe he was trying to scare me. I thought, oh, it says skeleton. Skeleton. Well, I remember to this day, probably more than 70 years ago, I remember that word. And I remember that picture, and something was imprinted in my brain all those years ago. It's still with me. So I learned something about what books were about without even thinking about it. But my brother had, I guess you'd say, it was really nice to show me this stuff. Because we had all these encyclopedias, and sure, even as a child, I loved to open them up and, look at all this stuff. Truthfully, when I was a kid, we even had, we call catalogs from Sears Roebuck and Montgomery Ward, because that's the way a lot of people bought things for the family, whether it was, stuff for your farm or clothes for the kids or whatever it was. And so I could look at these I don't have one anymore. I wish I'd saved one. You look through a big catalog and you look at all this stuff and you see things written down to describe what it was. So you learn what a tractor is, and you learn what, a baking pan is, or whatever. All kinds of stuff. All that really, really helps. One of my favorite books, it's one I always have, it's a dictionary, and I can show you this because it's used in a lot of colleges, Oxford American Dictionary, and that's not a commercial. This is a paperback, doesn't cost too much, but it's got lots of words in here. Oh my goodness, I don't know how many thousands, it doesn't tell me how many thousands of words in here. But I read about somebody, I guess he was in I don't know if he was in reform school or prison or wherever he was, but he he looked at a dictionary once and he got an idea that he was going to learn something from this book. And what he said was, he read through the whole thing and discovered that what was in a dictionary, it's like a little encyclopedia. The one I showed you, this, is a big encyclopedia, right? One of about 24 volumes. But here's a smaller book you can hold in your hand and read about all kinds of stuff. There are definitions of words, what words mean, but it also tells you a lot of stuff. You read about people in here, you read about their history. So it's a huge education in a little book. You can do it all by yourself. I mean, I really think books are important. And as a person who, I can't really tell you how it happened, but I still go to school. I love it. About a year or so ago, I was studying geology, and I can't really show you the titles of these books because I don't want to infringe on somebody's rights, but these are geology books, a couple of them. And I mention that because it's you know, maybe a lot of us like rocks and stones. I mean, I've liked that stuff here, but seeing some of this stuff, and I brought one out here to show you. I don't know how well you can see the definitions on this, little lines in here. Well, this thing, what you see in here, is called a stromatolite. That's just a technical word for what you're looking at. The little animals, if you will, that, I'm not sure they were bacteria, but they made little lines in layers of, I guess it probably was mud, and it became compacted into a rock, a piece of stone. Now, some of these can be 2.5 billion years old. I say that with a sense of awe because I can't comprehend 2.5 billion years. I can't comprehend 1,000,000 years. Are you kidding? But just to learn that fact that we know something about animals, or I'm not even sure they were animals, whatever stromatolites were, bacteria perhaps that lived in layers of mud and left their traces on rocks, I think that's pretty amazing stuff to know. That's one thing I learned in geology. Another thing, I can't show you a picture because that would be using somebody else's pictures. I can't do that. But I learned about an animal called Anomalocaris. Now here's an animal that we're told lived more than 500 million years ago. 540 million years. Again, numbers so large I can't comprehend. But why do I really care about that? Well, it happens that I used to think that animals from the long past were all little dinky things, like the ones that, you know, in the stromatolite rocks. But Anomalocaris was bigger than I am. I mean, over 6 feet tall, swam in the sea. But there's more to that. What really, really fascinated me was, they say there are parts of genetic material. Now, you know about genes. I'm sure you've heard about that. We have genes, of course, in our body, you know, inside of all these cells. But inside the genes there are more little records of what life is about. And surprisingly, some of the stuff we have inside of us today goes back to some of these animals that lived 500 million years ago. Now, I'm not trying to disrupt your thinking at all. I'm just trying to say enlarge it a little bit. Education really is about learning about stuff to enlarge your life. Now, I've met people who never left their own little town, wherever they lived, you know, no matter where they were. But that's what books are about. And that they can bring you to other places. You can learn other things. And so if you've been in our house at all, you saw some books in one of these early videos. So you can look in this particular, and we've got thousands of books. I love books. It's the way I learn things. This semester, I've been studying what we call neuropsychology. I can't show you the cover, but this is a big textbook. And again, why would I study something like this? Well, as a teacher, all those years ago, starting in 1965, I couldn't tell you really too much technical about how children really learn. We knew some of the processes of how we could teach them how to do things, to write, to listen, to read aloud, etc. But we never quite figured out at that point how it all got stored up here. But there's been a lot of research since then. And so I'm studying neuropsychology about how it all connects. You know, we see it and it goes up here in these 100 billion cells, or we hear it. I really am fascinated. I'm sharing this stuff with you because I would hope that you also might get the idea, especially if you haven't had a chance to go to school very much, or maybe you're still pretty young in school. It's really, really a pretty exciting journey. I mean, there's no limit, really, to what you can learn. I don't think so. And I will tell you, just like I told lots of students, in my class, this is not your class, but if you're in a class, I tell you, you will get smarter. Because you'll be reading some stuff, or you'll be learning things, and that will make you smarter. You'll know more information. You'll know more about all those words you've heard in the years past, and now you know what they look like. It's not always so easy for some people to learn this because, well, again, a lot of the processes are tied up with what you've already gone through. You know, if you, like one of our family had a little trouble hearing, if you have trouble hearing things, it does kind of make it a little difficult in certain ways to hear. If you can't hear the words, it's harder to decipher them, to figure out what they are. But there's ways around that. But I do hope that you'll get the idea that, hey, it's really good stuff to learn, and the more you learn, the smarter you become. I'm sharing it because I've been writing, and I think that all this stuff I've learned all these years, it has made me much more open to ideas that come into me, but also more open to let ideas come out of me. If there's anything, if anything that I've learned, that I've shared that might be of some use to somebody, yourself or anybody else who might look at this, I say, terrific. That's what it's about. What are we here for anyhow? Hey, we enjoy it. Even though it's been a rainy days the last week or so, we still like it. We enjoy what we're doing and enjoying learning and sharing. And I hope you get that little idea for yourself too. It's actually quite a big idea. But hey, think about writing, sharing your stories. And don't worry too much, as I think I mentioned, don't worry too much about the spelling, because that's really what a book like this is about, a dictionary. It helps you figure out how to spell. And I do use the dictionary a lot. I mean, there's a word that for years I couldn't figure out what the word witch and witch meant. There's two of them, right? One of them is about a person that flies on a broom, W-I-T-C-H. Another one says, well, which one are you talking about? That's the W-H-I-C-H. For years I got those confused. I just couldn't figure it out. But then I look them up and say, oh, so I finally learned how to do it. And there's many words like that. They sound the same, but they're spelled differently. And it's important to know that, well, because if you're writing something, you want somebody else to know, well, yeah, this is the way I write Ray. You don't want to teach somebody the wrong way to do something. Try it. Learn some stuff. Read what you can. Look at a dictionary. Write down some stuff. I do a lot of writing, usually early in the morning. It wakes me up. I'm talking about, for me, it's like 2 or 3 in the morning. I don't fight it, because I first started doing that when I was first teaching a long time ago, and I thought, okay, best to think about it, write down some little notes, and then go back to sleep. It's worked for me. That's how I've learned some things, how I've been able to share some things. That may be enough for this little story I've been telling you about my life, a bit of it anyhow, how I learn and how I write and how I share. I'm going to share some other stuff with you one of these days or weeks. I'm not quite sure what that's going to be, but if what I've been doing right now is good enough, I'll put it on my YouTube channel, and I'll call it Writing a Book, Part 5. And that would be the end of this little series of talks I've been giving to you. Thanks for looking, as always. Take care. Bye-bye.